So I don't know how many of you guys actually watched the latest episode of One Piece, episode 1093, but we saw kind of a ridiculous feat in that episode. So Toei this time around had the brilliant idea to adapt cover stories into the anime, which is something they do from time to time, but it is very inconsistent. This time around though, we got a very important cover story adapted, and that is Kuzan and Van Ogre's raid on Whole Cake Island. In this cover story, we see Van Ogre and Kuzan lay waste to Cracker. In the manga, we don't really get the full scope of how this battle went down. It really just looked like Kuzan one-shot him, right? We see Cracker, we see his frozen body, and that's pretty much all we get out of this scene. But in the anime, Toei decided to go a step further. Toei decided to add a little bit of flair to the scene. And it started a lot of conversation, because in this battle, we see Van Ogre one-shot Cracker's biscuit soldiers, not once, not twice, but 3 separate times. 1 bullet, 1 kill is absolutely ridiculous when you think about how hard Luffy struggled against these biscuit soldiers back in Whole Cake Island. Even though Cracker isn't exactly an opponent we're wary of anymore, he is still a very strong opponent nonetheless. So having Van Ogre just walk on by and one-shot his biscuit soldiers is very impressive. And then, of course, something really silly about the power scaling aspects of it is that in that same episode, Van Ogre shot John Bart in the gut, and John Bart tanked it with seemingly no hockey whatsoever. So, what does this say about John Bart? I don't really know, but just reining it in, this video was pretty much inspired by Van Ogre's feat in the episode. While it is not canon, I wouldn't be super shocked if Van Ogre had power similar to this in the manga, because when you really think about it, Van Ogre is potentially Usopp's final opponent in the story. When you think about the future fights of One Piece, all we have left are really the Gorosei and the world government, and the Blackbeard pirates. The order in which we'd fight these two entities is still unknown right now, but either way, Van Ogre is built up to be one of Usopp's final opponents. So why not give him somebody who is absurd, somebody who can actually one-shot biscuit soldiers? It just makes a lot of sense, right? End of story, Usopp should be at that level in my opinion. And this kind of spurred a thought in my head, like, hey, how does Usopp bridge this gap? Because let me tell you, this is pure headcanon, pure speculation, but I do not believe that Usopp right now on Egghead Island can one-shot a biscuit soldier. Actually, I don't even think he could take down a singular biscuit soldier without some sort of assistance. So that right there got me thinking, how could Usopp level up in these next couple of islands? What powers or abilities could he get? And I feel like this is a hot topic considering that Elbaf is right around the corner. Do you guys know how long people have been hyping up Usopp's adventure to Elbaf? Ever since 2007, when we got introduced to Dorian Broggy, people have been expecting an Usopp power-up once we hit that island. And that right there, my friends, is what we're here to discuss today. The 6 power-ups that I think Usopp could get when we hit Elbaf or beyond. So for the sake of time, I'll try to keep these points short, sweet, and somewhat simple. And also, I will be listing them from most likely power-up to least likely power-up. I think that'll be a fun way to do it. And we will start with the most likely power-ups first. So the first power-up that I believe that Usopp is most likely to get in the story is obviously Future Sight Haki. So back in Dressrosa, we saw Usopp unlock basic observation Haki, and it was a very impressive showing. He sniped Sugar from miles and miles away, and not to mention, the way he saw Sugar was very special as well. Not just because this is a great Usopp feat, because very rarely in the series do we actually get to see what observation Haki looks like from someone's point of view. We only get that twice, once with Usopp and the second time with Fujitora, where he sees all the citizens running alongside him. So I do think this is a very special moment, and I think Usopp could unlock the advanced observation Haki, which is just straight up Future Sight. In one of the most recent showings of Future Sight in the manga, we saw Shanks tap about 10 seconds into the future during his fight with Kid to predict what Kid was going to do, and he said, hey, that's not cool, so he cut Kid off before he could even begin. I do think that Usopp, maybe not 10 seconds, but I believe that Usopp will have a great understanding of observation Haki and Future Sight, so much so that he can see maybe about 3 to 5 seconds into the future, I don't think that would be too absurd. And not to mention, I don't think this power would be wasted on Usopp either. So taking into consideration that Van Augur is most likely going to be Usopp's Blackbeard opponent, I feel like this would be a very useful ability against Van Augur. Because when you really think about it, Van Augur has the Warp Devil Fruit. He can pretty much use instant transmission and teleport all around the world. How is Usopp supposed to keep up with somebody like that? Usopp isn't exactly known for his speed feats, so I think it would be really hard if he tried to bridge the gap through physical means. But if Usopp had Future Sight though, he could actually predict where Van Augur would teleport, probably well before Van Augur himself even knows he's going to teleport. I think that would lead to a really cool battle and exchange, and it could bridge the gap between Van Augur and Usopp. And it would also show that Haki transcends all, because that is what Kaido said when he was fighting Luffy, right? Hey, Devil Fruits are great, but Haki is even better. Usopp besting Van Augur's Devil Fruit with Haki would be a beautiful showing in my opinion. So now, the second likely power-up that Usopp could potentially get in the near future would be a brand new type of observation Haki altogether. And I know this does kind of blend in with the first power-up, but hear me out a little bit. So in the One Piece movie, Film Red, we saw a brand new type of observation Haki being utilized by Usopp and Yasopp, where Usopp could actually tap in to Yasopp's mind and see what Yasopp is seeing. It was kind of ridiculous. It reminded me of the 6 Paths of Pain, where all of the bodies were just linked up and they had total vision around the battlefield. And honestly, I don't think that would be a bad fit for Usopp either. Of course though, the main thing working against this idea is that Film Red isn't exactly canon and Usopp doesn't have these abilities, but I could see this being worked into the future of One Piece. And not to mention, in the Film Red Volume 4 Billion data book, Oda actually wrote a bunch of notes on how strong some of the Red Hair crew actually is. And he wrote something very interesting for Shanks, where Oda himself noted that Shanks has the power to cancel other people's observation Haki, which is a Haki feat that we have not seen in the anime, in the movie, or even the manga. So Oda himself is already toying with the idea of how to expand Haki in the near future. So giving Usopp a brand new type of observation Haki in general, I don't think is too far-fetched. And not to mention, but it would fit right in with Usopp's fighting style as well, so it wouldn't feel alien by any means. And hey, if option 1 and 2 are a little bit too crazy, we could always dial it back and say that Usopp could just get base armament Haki and be able to shoot his pop greens with that extra oomph, which is something we do know is actually possible because the Amazonians at Amazon Lily were able to infuse Ryuo into their arrows. So yeah, whether it's observation Haki, a brand new type of Haki, or just straight up armament and Ryuo, I do believe that Usopp is going to get some form of Haki advancements in the near future. So with all this talk about Usopp getting new skills and abilities, I feel like it is only right for me to tell you guys about where I go if I want to learn something new. And that place is Skillshare. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes led by industry pros across film, illustrations, designs, freelance, productivity, and more. It's never too late to learn something new, so why not journey over to Skillshare to take your career, your skill sets, and your side hustles to even greater horizons. If you're not too sure where to start, Skillshare has designed learning paths to help you get from novice to pro in no time whatsoever. Learning paths are hand-picked classes meant to be taken in order that build on one another, reinforcing the lessons that you've learned. No matter what your experience level is, there is a class out there for you, and there are a myriad of classes as well. And another great feature that I forgot to mention is that there's no real cap to how many learning paths you can pick up at once either. You can learn anything and everything whenever you want. The learning path that I'm currently on right now is how to edit eye-catching videos in Final Cut Pro. If you've been wanting to hop into YouTube but you're not too sure how to edit a video quite yet, you could start off on this learning path as a beginner and walk away as a pro. Quite honestly, there's no reason not to get Skillshare. especially since for this video, they have a special offer going on where the first 500 people who click the link down in the description below will get Skillshare for free for 1 month. So why not treat yourself to a brand new skill and learn something new by simply clicking the link in the description down below? Because like I said, the first 500 people who click it will get a 1 month free trial of Skillshare. Thank you so much, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video and being a proud partner of this channel. So now, on to the third potential Usopp upgrade. I believe that his pop green arsenal could be expanded upon once we hit Elbaf. So back when we first hit Sabaody 2.0 and Fishman Island, people were hyping up Usopp's pop greens to hell and back. And I was one of those people. When I saw Usopp utilize his pop greens and, sprout flowers out of the ground, I was going crazy because I was always an Usopp fan. I always wanted to see Usopp get stronger as time went on. And pop greens were perfect for Usopp up until they weren't. So, as the arcs went on, Usopp's pop greens became less and less impactful. They started doing less and less damage because our opponents just kept on getting stronger. A prime example of this would be on Onigashima. Back when Usopp was fighting Page 1 and Ulti, I was on the boat that Usopp was gonna 1v1 Page 1. I was one of those guys. Every chapter we got of Nami and Ulti and Usopp and Page 1, it just brought a smile to my face because I knew deep down that they were just gonna fight and Usopp was gonna go crazy. Didn't happen. Like a kid waiting for Santa Claus, he never actually came. Instead, we had Nami beat Ulti, which is something I absolutely love for her. But as far as Usopp goes, he didn't even get a good honorable mention in the Page 1 fight, in my opinion. Because what happened was that Usopp used his strongest attacks against Page 1, but Page 1 brushed all of them aside. Whether it be the skull bomb, whether it be the bamboo shoots, Usopp could not even scratch Page 1. I mean, well, he did scratch him, but he didn't draw blood, he didn't mortally injure him. It was Big Mom who had to put down Page 1, and I was just so saddened to get that outcome, because I really felt like Usopp could have shined right there, or at least, Page 1 would be like, oh, that Usopp guy, he's a real menace. That never happened. There was no Usopp respect on Onigashima, minus his speech that he gave to Kinemon and Izo. Usopp, in my opinion, just did not really have a great showing on Onigashima if you're looking for battles. If you're looking for character development, I think it is there. But me, I'm a battle junkie. I'm all about my battle shonens. I want to see people fight. And Usopp just has really been letting me down in that regard for the past couple of arcs. But I always reel it back, and in the back of my head, like a weird Winter Soldier code, I'm just like, wait for Elbaf, wait for Elbaf, wait for Elbaf. And hey, if Usopp were to get a power-up on Elbaf, I do believe it could come in the form of advanced pop greens. And let me tell you guys why. And this is gonna sound so silly, but it's so true. But the reason why I believe Usopp's pop greens could get a glow-up on Elbaf is because the plants of Elbaf might be a lot bigger than usual. I know some people probably just busted up laughing when they heard that because it's such a simple thing to say. Like, oh, it's the land of giants, so they have giant plants. But that is somewhat factual, right? Because when Kid was going to Elbaf and we saw the fish off the coast, Killer made a remark saying, hey, the fish of this island are really big, this place is pretty huge. So I wouldn't be shocked if we get introduced to giant plants, and if Usopp can somehow obtain the seeds of those plants and bring them into his arsenal. And even if that isn't the case, and let's say Usopp cannot obtain the plants of Elbaf, he could get the soil from Elbaf as well, because we do know that Usopp has a pop green garden on the Thousand Sunny. So maybe there's something special about Elbaf soil, and he utilizes that to make his pop greens even stronger. Believe it or not, but I'm a really big fan of this idea because Usopp's pop greens are just so unique to him, and I would love if they just came back to the forefront of his arsenal. So yeah, having him get new plants or advanced versions of pop greens on Elbaf could just be a really simple solution to scale him upwards for his future battles. So now, onto the fourth potential upgrade I believe Usopp could get over on Elbaf. I believe he could get a brand new weapon altogether. Before we get into it, I just want to put this disclaimer out there. I do believe that Usopp, from the start of the story to the end of the story, will be a sniper. You know, it is ingrained in his character. He's always going to be our little sharpshooter of the Straw Hats. That is just who he is. But that being said, I think there is a potential for Usopp to get Mjolnir, Thor's hammer. And of course, sounds a little bit ridiculous, but let me explain. Elbaf, thus far, has had a lot of Nordic references, from Loki to the ships to the Atom Tree looking like Idrisville. There's a lot of things that ties Elbaf to Norse mythology. So I wouldn't be super shocked if by the time we hit Elbaf, we just get hit with more Nordic references, and Mjolnir would be one of them. So now you might be wondering how a hammer would exactly fit into Usopp's arsenal, right? When you think of Usopp, like I said, you think of a sniper. Why would he pick up a hammer out of nowhere? Well, if you recall, Usopp has always been using a hammer throughout the series. He used the hammer against Chu, which is a member of Arlong's crew, right? He used the hammer, he hit him, and that is how he pretty much finished that fight. Another noteworthy example of how Usopp has used the hammer was against Perona, because he whipped out his iconic 10-ton hammer. And not to mention, there was also the fight with Mr. 4, where he whipped out not only the 10-ton hammer, but he used the hammer as ammo for his slingshot. I'm sure most of us have watched the Thor movies, or at least knows how this hammer mythologically should work. 1, it produces electricity. 2, only the worthy can wield it. And 3, once you throw it out there, it actually flies right back to you. So let's say hypothetically, Usopp gets this hammer. He uses it in conjunction with his slingshot, and once he fires it out and it hits its target, it comes right back to him. He has unlimited ammo if that is the case, and I think it would fit with him quite well. And not to mention, but this could fix one of Usopp's major problems in terms of combat, which is close range fighting. Of course, this is something that doesn't exactly need to be touched on, right? Usopp is a sniper, he fights from long distances, but hey, if anyone ever tries to box Usopp, maybe he does have some crazy hammer techniques and he could just simply knock them away so that he could finish them off with his sniper. I feel like Mjolnir would just be the perfect addition to Usopp's arsenal. And it could even be a huge step when it comes to Usopp achieving his dream of becoming a brave warrior of the sea. Because like I said earlier, according to mythology, or at least some cases of it, only those that the hammer deems worthy can actually pick it up and wield it. So imagine if we get to Elbaf and we learn that, hundreds of giants and people come by to pick up the hammer, but they can't do it. But all of a sudden, Usopp picks it up and it deems him worthy. That would be a great way for Usopp and even us to acknowledge that he has become a great warrior of the sea. And that right there doesn't even have to be the end of Usopp's dream either. Maybe Usopp picks up the hammer, it deems him worthy, but Usopp doesn't see himself as a brave warrior yet. So he spends the rest of the series with his fight against Van Augur, with his fight against the world government, trying to master the hammer and prove that he is indeed worthy in the end. I just feel like that could be a really cool plot point. And I feel like it would really help progress Usopp's character and end goal. So now on to the 5th potential upgrade that Usopp could get in the future of the series, and this is where I start to fall off on the possibility list, right? The first 4 I was pretty strong on. Even Mjolnir, as, headcanon as it is, I feel pretty good about that. But here onwards, I'm kind of like, I'm like scratching my chin. I'm like, okay, this is a stretch, but there does exist a reality out there where this could happen. And number 5 is Usopp unlocking Conqueror's Haki. Boo! I know, right? Some people hate this idea a lot, and I feel like that's very fair. But this is another way for Usopp to prove that he is, again, a brave warrior of the sea, because he has Conqueror's Haki, because he has that kingly ambition, and by getting King's Haki, he would put himself up there among the list of greats. So you might be wondering why Conqueror's Haki out of everything. Well, there is this ongoing gag where some of Usopp's lies do become truths eventually. There's actually a whole list of Usopp lies that do become true, and it's kind of crazy when you really look at the list, right? We have the giant goldfish, we have the Tontaras, we have Miss Groundhog's Day. Like, there's a lot of lies that just straight up become a thing in the series. And one lie that he made over on Onigashima was that he had Conqueror's Haki. So I forgot who did it. It was either Luffy or Kaido, but there was somebody up on the rooftop that was just straight up exhuming Conqueror's Haki throughout Onigashima. So much so that people on the bottom floors were passing out. People were wondering what was happening, and Usopp, being very Usopp, took credit for it. He said, oh, they must have passed out because of my Conqueror's Haki. And ever since then, I have had this, like, you know, itch in my neck that's like, wait, Oda, surely Oda knows what he's doing, right? Like Oda's having Usopp lie about Conqueror's Haki could be foreshadowing that Usopp will get Conqueror's Haki later on. So yeah, there is that chance. I do feel like if Usopp were to unlock Conqueror's Haki, he wouldn't exactly get advanced Conqueror's Haki. I feel like it would be just a really nice setup for a scene like God Usopp. And that's pretty much it. You know, I don't exactly expect Usopp to master it to the extent of Luffy and Kaido, but he could just simply use it at a very peak moment, like Luffy at Marineford, or even Luffy at Impel Down, right? People are in trouble, something's about to go down, and then boom, Usopp conquers Haki, people pass out, and then we all clap for Usopp. I feel like that could be very plausible. So now, on to the last upgrade, the 6th upgrade that Usopp could get. Funny enough, this was actually at the top of my list going into Wano and going into Egghead Island, but as time progressed, I realized that this option is becoming more and more flimsy. And that option would be Usopp getting a Devil Fruit. So when I think about Usopp getting a Devil Fruit, I kind of see it in two different camps. I can see Usopp himself eating a Devil Fruit, and I can also see Usopp's weapon, his Kabuto, eating a Devil Fruit, especially now that we're here on Egghead Island, because Dr. Vegapunk is around, and Dr. Vegapunk is the man who found out how to give weapons Devil Fruits in the first place. The idea of Usopp's weapon eating a Devil Fruit is just straight up cool across the board, right? Like, Usopp could talk to his weapon, he could strategize with his weapon, his attacks would get a lot more potent, and through this possibility, we will learn how Vegapunk actually feeds inanimate objects Devil Fruits. There's just a lot of wins if Oda goes this route. But the reason why I'm no longer bullish on this idea is because we have Zeus. Zeus is pretty much an unofficial Nakama. He just straight up lives in Nami's baton, and I feel like if Usopp were to get a Zoan Devil Fruit in his weapon, it would just be like another Zeus, which Zeus himself already gets very little screen time, so I feel like having another sentient weapon on the crew would be a little bit redundant. I wouldn't mind it, but we're at the point in the story where we have so many Straw Hats and so many characters on board the Thousand Sunny that not a lot of these characters get polished anymore. So I feel like adding another, you know, semi-Nakama to the crew would be very rough. But then again, you know, if Elbaf is Usopp's arc, and if we spend a lot of personal time with Usopp, maybe this does feel natural. But yeah, that is the main reason why I'm not exactly on board with this idea anymore. It's kind of like I fell out of love with the idea. As far as Usopp himself getting a Devil Fruit, I always thought that would be really cool. You know, give Usopp a Logia, and then boom, you know, people try to hit him, they phase right through him. I think that'd be dope. But Oda actually answered a question a long time ago in an SBS as to what Devil Fruit he thinks would fit Usopp the best. And I don't know how many of you guys actually remember the answer that Oda gave, but he said that the Devil Fruit that would best fit Usopp would be the Pocket no Mi, where he can essentially just reach inside of his body and have infinite pockets. He has an infinite storage inside of his own body. And while that is cool in a sense, and that would be very handy for Usopp, I would argue that Usopp already has that ability, right? Like, how many times in the story has Usopp just randomly pulled something out of his pockets that really shouldn't be there? You know, Usopp essentially has the Pocket no Mi already, in my opinion. But hey, who knows? That SBS was made a long time ago, so maybe Oda has changed his mind throughout the years. Maybe he has a different idea for Devil Fruits in regards to Usopp now. One thing that I do think would be really fun if Usopp did eat a Devil Fruit would be that we would finally see a member of the crew eating a Devil Fruit. We haven't really seen that often, where people find a Devil Fruit out there in the wild and eat it for themselves. So if Usopp were to do it, that would be a pretty cool thing to see, right? Like, we've been to so many islands in the past 26 years of One Piece, and not once have we just looked up at a tree and saw devil fruit. So maybe that's in store for us here, but who knows, man. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble about 6 different options for Usopp's potential upgrades. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Please let me know what you agree with, disagree with, which option do you resonate with the most? What do you think Usopp's gonna get? I would love to hear anything and everything down below. And one last time, thank you so much to the sponsor of this video, Skillshare. Again, click the link in the description down below, and the first 500 people will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, which is a invaluable experience in my opinion, so be sure to take advantage of it. But yeah, I'll catch you guys when the next chapter of One Piece drops. My name is Sai, and I'm signing out. Peace.